Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Layer by Layer. Today we're going to talk about Moondust Filament, the state of desktop metal, also our new 3D printing API that gives anybody access to our print farms regardless of what project you're working on, and an update on tangled testing. It's going to be a pretty fun one, I think. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and pay the bills. This video is sponsored by Audible. If you love books but can't find the time to read, Audible is your go-to solution. With thousands of audiobooks and podcasts, you can listen to your favorite stories anywhere and anytime. And here's the best part. By using our special link down in the bio, you can get an exclusive 30-day trial, plus 1 free ebook credit and 2 credits if you already are a Prime member. So why wait? Give Audible a listen today, and let's get on with the podcast. Done. We have confirmed the cost of production on all this stuff. Completed that. All right, first piece of news. Per TCT, Replique has publicly launched its material hub for 3D printing after a successful beta release. The beta release, Replique said, received overwhelmingly positive feedback, with the company now ready to introduce the database to the broader community. Replique's Material Hub is now openly accessible and contains an impressive collection of more than 400 material polymers, compiled in collaboration with 25 material providers. This is double the number of materials available when it was initially introduced at FormNext in 2023. So, the Material Hub is effectively a material data hub center where you're able to get good material specs on different types of materials from 3D printing services. Replique also is a 3D printing service in and of itself, or historically was. I believe they still are. Once you pick a material, you're able to apply that material to whatever your part may be. So the Material Hub is a good addition to the quantification of 3D printed materials. I think they mainly focus on SLS, SLA type of materials, not necessarily FDM. I think there's a few inside of there. But let's see. What else? Other kind of notes. Replique, sure. Yep. I also made sure. Yep. They've had well-tested materials up there. Can benefit from a collection of knowledge in the database. Yeah, it's effectively a database. That is the whole thing on that. But the reason this is an important piece of news is because the 3D printing industry needs to and has been moving towards increasing formalization of data. And this is like what we've been doing with tangled testing. How do we know what the part being made is going to be? And these types of data aggregation resources that get all of it into one spot rather than that supplier, and you Google around a little bit is terribly useful information. So that's fantastic. All right, new 3D printing filament has hit the market and is almost, now I'm going to save that for just a moment, Basalt Moondust Filament. So they are using Basalt, which is really similar to the regolith that you find on the moon, in that it's very coarse and is actually used for lunar regolith simulant. So like NASA and everybody else use ground up basalt, not necessarily ground up, but processed basalt in order to simulate moon dust. This moondust filament, made from the lunar regolith simulant, a synthetic material that is 60 to 62% basalt and designed to mimic the composition of actual lunar regolith. The filament is a collaboration between Virtual Foundry and Astrosport Space Technologies. There's not much information available on the filament's properties, although the Virtual Foundry claims it can be sintered, resulting in a final product that's 100% basalt. Here is the kicker. This new filament cost $779 per kilogram. So, as far as practical applications of this, the fact that it can be centered, Astrosport Space Technologies, I'm going to presume, is a lunar colonization startup or tangential to that. So they're making this filament in order to experiment with 3D printing parts and pieces from lunar regolith. So if you have a moon base there, can you make parts and pieces from the stuff that's scattered around on the ground? The fact that it can be centered is an experimentation of that, and this filament is a way to figure out design and processes when working with this material, simulated material. So the fact that it's so expensive is just indicative of the nastiness of regolith simulant Because if you didn't know, lunar regolith is not like dust here on Earth. It's not just dust. It is a fantastically abrasive material, because since the moon has no atmosphere and no water, the dust on it doesn't wear down. Literally, it breaks off into exceptionally jagged, tiny little microcrystals that just tear up everything and get into everything, and you can't wear them down because there's been no erosion already. All the sand on Earth is like little pebbles because it's been worn down smooth. So when it gets in stuff, it's bad. The dust is bad, but it doesn't dig and tear at it the way lunar regolith does. Creating that in a simulant form, which I don't know if the simulant material used here on Earth is as nasty as real regolith. I don't know if we're even able to create that same sort of situation. I assume we can, but the simulant here on Earth might be a little bit smoother and more like normal dust. If they're making it all jagged and nasty, the processing of it would be a son of a gun, because it just doesn't flow through an extruder and the rest of it, and mixing it would be difficult to do with the polymer and so on and so forth. So I actually sort of understand the cost. And it's not like this lunar simulant is mass produced, so it is just expensive as it is. I would not be surprised if it was a couple $100 a pound for that stuff, because it's just, nobody really needs it. And it's a very specialty type of material that is needed by NASA and a couple of grant teams that are working on something, like probably here, Astrosport Space Technologies. And they're trying to see if somebody else will buy some of this so they can offset some of their cost of development. So it'd be fantastic. It's a nifty thing. It's not very practical for here on Earth. But if you are working with space technologies and want to make something that can be used on the moon at some point, it is useful there. FormLabs has released the FormLabs Texture Engine, a web-based app that can directly apply ready-to-print textures to 3D models. So this is great. We talk about textures a lot here on the channel. And because textures are a secret superpower of 3D printing. You get them for free with printing, and every other process you have to pay through the nose for a texture on the part. The more texture engines around that are able to apply textures uniformly and reliably to parts are really useful, because it is difficult to apply textures inside of CAD because it's very data intensive. Even if you have a great CAD setup computer, putting a texture on your part slows it down a hair because it's just so much additional detail. Like if you put pyramids on the surface of a part or little domes, you just created thousands of spheres that your software is now trying to create or trying to maintain and localize. So it's very computationally intensive. Height maps and displacement maps applied to an STL are very not computationally expensive, which is why they can do a web-based app of this. But it is not native to like CAD. So these additional tools are really great. Idea Maker or Raise 3D has Idea Maker, which is their slicer, which has a displacement map function inside of the slicer. We apply it through a number of different softwares that we use locally. FormLabs now has a web app. There's a lot of ways to do these displacement maps, and it radically improves the parts because it makes them look better, and it is a low-cost way to really improve the premium aspect of your part. So yeah, this is great that there's another one out there, and we always want to promote these types of projects because these are really useful. Okay, let's see. One other piece of notes. Desktop Metal. Desktop Metal reported financial results the other day for all of 2023. So they ended up doing $190 million in revenue, which was down $20 million from 2022, where they did $209 million in revenue. So almost a 10% reduction in revenue, which isn't great. But even though they had that reduction in revenue, their cost of operations radically reduced and improved, and their overall net income radically improved and reduced and improved. So there is a 3dprint.com article going through all the financials. They reference EBITDA a bunch, and the EBITDA is adjusted earnings before tax and amortization or depreciation, so on and so forth. But interest, tax, and amortization, depreciation. So the EBITDA if you ascribe to the Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger way of evaluating a company, is BS, because taxes, interest, and all this other stuff are part of the cost of operations. So the fact that you remove all of that, you basically eliminate all of your expense for debt inside of there. But the debt was necessary for building it. So it's kind of a bad metric. So I am referencing the net income numbers here. The net income is how much money you made after all the bills were paid. The net income that Desktop Metal had for this last year was minus $323 million. So they lost $323 million. I don't remember how much cash they had in the bank, but that's a bunch. But it is wildly down from the year before, where they lost $740 million. To be fair about that, though, they had done a bunch of acquisitions in 2022 that were expensive. So they had to shell out a bunch of money for that they won't see return on for 5-10 years. So that's why net income is kind of false, because it makes it look really bad when you're investing in your business. But EBITDA goes too far in the other direction. So a little financial opinion piece on that. But ultimately, Desktop Metal, their cost of operations went down. They've cut 20% of their workforce. They've conjoined all the companies that they purchased before, and they're cleaning it up to where they're planning to be they're planning to be profitable per EBITDA by the end of this year, which they're probably on track to do. The decrease in revenue is not good, because Desktop Metal has always been valued as a growth stock, and that's not growth. And that's a pretty significant not growth. They've had slowdowns in the P50 system that are slowing them down there, and most of their revenue is coming from recurring or dental and polyjet or non-metal processes. So little bit of a concern on that, but overall improvements. They're getting better, and their finances are improving. Desktop Metal is always kind of the vanguard of the state of the 3D printing industry, because they're the most public, they're one of the biggest, and they've taken one of the biggest hits. Right now they're valued at $226 million, which for them would effectively be, it's not a great valuation for the number of assets and the amount of stuff that they have. But Desktop Metal is very much kind of an IP company. Their patent portfolio is where most of the value is, because somebody else makes the machines. They have their sales network that sells the machines, but they're a lot like Apple in that their ideas are what is most valuable about the company, and they're protected patents for these devices over the next 20 years. So there's all that. But that's the news. All right, moving into company updates. The Etsy app release. Yes, anybody with an Etsy store can now connect to our app. There's been a few questions come through that I'm going to come on. Right now, it is one model per one listing. We are, with the new release here, a bunch of people had requested multicolor options on the same part inside of the listing. We're going to get that deployed here for you guys here soon. So that is on the dev roadmap. But right now, you sign up for the app, and then you connect your Etsy store, and then your Etsy store product listings import, and then you upload your 3D models, and you match a 3D model to that listing. As soon as the match happens, the orders will come through to us. It's been going really well. We've been keeping up with the demand of it all and getting the parts shipped out on time and everything else, so we haven't been inundated or any more than what we expected. So it's going very well. And the Etsy app is going to be, it's really handy because it lets people deal with spikes in demand when they need it, and also just grow very quickly if they have an Etsy product that is popular without having to build out a print farm. So the Etsy app is a really nifty application that we're going to keep on pushing on, supporting, and building out. People have asked about Shopify, Amazon, eBay on down the line. We technically have that on the roadmap, but we just released something this last week that is hopefully going to let somebody else beat us there. And that'll come up in just a moment. We're going to talk about that more in discussion. Tangled filament in production. Yes, we got this extruder dedicated to tangled filament has been fixed and is operational and is cranking out hundreds of kilograms of material. So we'll be getting caught up on orders of that, and we'll be re-upping here very soon. So we'll break that loose. We are also getting another extruder finalized. And that will also be committed to Tangled so that we can scale it up. We're hoping to drop the cost per spool down to about $15 here in the next couple of months. As soon as we can, and we get it up to stasis on that. Get all caught up, get all the bugs worked out. But I think we have pretty much all the bugs worked out. We are, on the site, we are reducing the 4 kg spool down to a 3. We'll experiment with a 3.5 kilogram spool. The reason for this is that the 4 kg spool is very filled. It's very full in order to get that all on there, which gives you guys more savings. But the feedback that we've gotten is that it's more hassle than it's worth. So we're gonna just go ahead and reduce the amount of material on the spool, which again is kind of that delay for the price cut because we can't amortize as much shipping into the filament as we would normally do. But it'll be a better user experience, and we want to make sure that that is staying strong and reliable. So 3 kg spools are currently available, and we'll be shipping in about a week. We're getting through our whole backlog here over the next week, so that'll be good. And Tangled is in a good spot, so we should be off to the races here. A lot of black PLAs getting made, and a lot more is coming. There's several hundred kg sitting down there on the floor right now that is about to be down spooled into the 4 kg spools to fix whatever's left on that, and then move into new production. So yeah, should be pretty good. Right now we're selling filament for $18 per kilogram effectively with free shipping inside of there. As a US company using US labor and all the rest of it, which I think right now, well, I don't know. There may be some actual US manufacturer who's going lower than that. There's a few companies that say US that are actually shipping it up from like Costa Rica or across the border from Mexico or something like that. But of actual true Midwest style manufacturing companies, I believe we might be the most cost effective right now, which is cool. And we're going to go lower because we're not competing with other US manufacturers. We're competing with China. That is the whole point of Tangled, to prove that US manufacturing should be able to make its own commodity and do it profitably and reliably and do a good job. So that's the whole point of the Tangled project, is to reduce the cost of filament while also demonstrating manufacturing capability here inside the States, because it's stupid that we can't do it at a larger scale more affordably than what we do. So we're doing it. The Tangled project has been fun. This goal and this project and all you guys getting behind it and that kind of stuff, it's been a fun project to work on because it's a nifty optimization problem that's easily solvable. It just needs the work at it. So it's been a fun project in that regard because we just next step, following the master plan of like, okay, we got to find a bigger spool. Okay, we got to run it a little bit more efficiently here. Okay, we got to find a better material, so on and so forth. So all of that's been great. Tangled testing. So we have the Tensile tester from the Kickstarter ordered. They are shipping it early April. It takes them a month or two to get it built, and then they're shipping it to us early April. It'll probably take about 20 days to cross the ocean, and a few days to get up here, and then a couple weeks for us to get it implemented and start getting videos out. So testing videos will start ramping back up again, but we want to do it with that rig because we want to build out kind of the video format for it. So Tangled testing will keep on ramping there. If you're a filament manufacturer and you want to sponsor a Tangled testing video, please reach out to us. It doesn't give you any sort of special treatment at all, but we will put your filament at the front of the line of stuff to be tested. Right now, we're going to start going through many of the popular brands just kind of natively. Maybe you should sponsor it, because then maybe if your filament sucks, we won't do anything. We're going to show different data that it sucks or whatever it was, but you get to show your data first. A few tests that we're really excited about with Tangled testing is testing all of the PLA Plus that is out there to show what the differences are, because nobody has any idea what PLA Plus is. And then going through the brands and like comparing blacks from every filament manufacturer and white from every filament manufacturer to show how the colorants, how the processing, and how the actual materials vary in between them. So that'll be a fun set of videos, but again, we want to really have it formalized because we want this data to be storing up to where an engineer or somebody who's doing optimization can just say, here's the material that actually holds up And then every year we will like recycle through them all and check on the manufacturers. Are they still making it the same way? Is it still as good? Or did they give up or change something? It's a way to hold manufacturers accountable while also creating really good data. So tangled testing will be a fun series of videos. And yeah, it's over on the other YouTube channel. We have a number of videos up there. There'll continue to be a few videos come up over here and a few videos come up over, and most of them come up over there. So we'll get that ramped. We're in a weird spot with content creation right now where we're just choreographing. All of it is tough. Because you gotta hit the holidays and you gotta hit the viral trends, and then we also have to do explainer videos and the design videos, which you guys actually watch a lot of and want more of. So we're trying to get those in while also hitting the other obligations. So there's just a lot, and there's a limited number of people who can work on this stuff. So there's all that. Okay. So now the API release. Earlier this week, we released open public access to the beta of our API v2. Version 2, the reason it is version 2 is because we built version 1 last year. We announced that we were working on version 1 last year. We could not release it. We were using it within several of our applications, Etsy, print on demand, that kind of thing. All those apps were available, but it wasn't performing to the level where we were happy with it, so we started working on V2, and V2 is pretty darn sick. It has the fastest slicer that we're aware of any system out there, to where it can turn apart into G code in milliseconds. It's really impressive in that regard, so that it can actually operate as an online system. But the API gives any developer access to our print farm. So if you are building an application where you want print on demand as a service in it, you can just add it in. And it's stupidly simple. The API does not have a lot of bells and whistles. It's a very simplified system. You send us a file, we send you back the price, you confirm the order with shipping information, and we send back the tracking number when it ships. That's what it is. We hope it'll open up a lot of opportunities for a lot of model generation, online model generation systems. Like a nightlight builder can now have you actually purchase the nightlight and that kind of thing. It's a really cool setup, and allow those developers to make some more money off of it. Because a lot of the guys who are doing like free 3D model generation have no way really to get it monetized. But to plug in just print on demand right now was a really easy way of getting it done. So we're excited about that. But this, more fundamentally, this is kind of one of the products that we've been working towards for several years right now, that we were not able to build until the farm was at a certain size and a certain reliability and quality. Because when we started Slant 3D, it was all about scale. Like, can we match injection molding? Can we physically do that? We did that back in 2020. And since then, we've been continuing to build out the scale while supporting our production clients and new clients coming in and any of the print-on-demand partners that we had, but then expanding from there to see can we do print-on-demand effectively? Because it's very, very easy to produce the same part 100,000 times. Easy. It's known how to do that. The challenge, though, is to produce 100,000 unique parts. That is an incredibly difficult problem because no factory has ever been built to do that before. We think our factory is on the edge of being able to where it can now do that. With the API, there's no smarts attached to it. Like, it is required of the designer or the developer or the submitter to make sure the thing is oriented correctly, sized correctly, all the stuff, to make sure that the part printed is what they expect it to be. We think it's useful to get this out right now so that people can use it. So if you're making flower pots that have no shenanigans attached to them, it's really easy to plug into us. If you have a website where you want to do sales and you know a little bit about development, you can connect to us without needing a special plugin until those plugins are available. So this gives so much access to our print farm that it's just a really big deal, and we're super excited about it. as we continue to expand this, the API will follow a trend of adding more colors, adding more control of print settings, so that you can, again, kind of engineer parts. But right now, it is you shove a part in, you get a part back, and the settings for it all are it prints at a 0.2 resolution, 20% infill. Oddly enough, that's the same as the Etsy app, because the Etsy app is running on the API right now. So all of that is very simple right now, and we will expand control over time, but we got to be super focused right now and make sure that when a part comes to us, it ships in 3 or 4 days, reliably, and is giving good data. There is a huge number of users out there who are able to utilize that and get value from it. But without us having to add in sparkle purple or whatever else it was. That, unfortunately, is a smaller subset of the overall user base out there. So we'll add in those features as we come along to give more control to developers, but right now it's mainly about being very easy to develop with and very reliable when a part comes through. So yeah, the first users we expect to be like cookie cutter model generators, nightlight makers, people with developers who are guys who want to develop for their website and connect their whatever website it might be to us. 3D model repos could put a buy now button right next to it and get an FDM print of it. So like Cults is almost FDM exclusive. They could throw all of their models onto the API, and normal people would be able to get prints of those parts. So designers should be able to get access to the more general population, not just the population that has a 3D printer. And that's really exciting because it helps to make 3D printing actually mainstream. Like, there's $1 trillion worth of plastic stuff manufactured each year, guys. And the 3D printing industry entirely is $15 billion, which is 1,000th of the size that it could be. It's itty bitty right now. Mainly because it's this walled garden of experience and what is the right machine and what's the right filament and all the rest of this. You shouldn't have to know that. You should be able to say, that's a really cool model that I saw on Instagram. Somebody made a Pokemon whatever or whatever it happens to be, or designed a nifty widget. You should just be able to say, buy now, and the parts show up a couple days later. And the designer shouldn't have to build a whole supply chain around it. So this API should enable that, to where designers can make cool stuff and focus on making cool stuff, and then all of the logistics and infrastructure takes care of the delivery of a part to the end user. So yeah, this API, as far as the workflow of the parts, like I say, they come in 0.2 resolution, 20% infill, printed in PLA. There's 3 color options selectable inside of it there. And then, excuse me. 3 color options selectable, and then it ships in 3 to 5 days. When a part comes off the machine, it is evaluated and processed and inspected to make sure that it's up to snuff. If it is fixable, then it would be fixed if for some reason a print failed, of course. If the part is just a poor design, we have to ship what it is. So it is the responsibility of the developers to effectively order a sample from themselves of whatever their parts are to make sure that their parts are adhering to good practices in design. And if you want to know about good practices of design, this entire YouTube channel. So there's that. We will also, there's a number of highlight videos of like, here are the basics, like the 10 things to check off. And we'll do more of those here as time goes by, specific to like the API and the Etsy app. But it's really exciting, guys, because it makes, no one has ever built an API like this to where you could affordably, for like less than $10, get a part printed and shipped in 2 to 3 days. There has never been a service like that. Every print-on-demand service right now is set up in China, and it takes 3 weeks for the part to get here, and then you don't know what the part is and all the rest of this. To have an actual print farm reliable enough, fast enough, and affordable enough to where any part can be made at any time, and it takes 1 post request to get it done, that's really flipping amazing. And it's only possible because we have hundreds of machines available to make sure that when fidget spinners go viral, we are able to meet the demand without creating a 4-week lead time. So it's been a long time coming, and it's great that we finally get to release this. So yeah, the API is over there. If you are a developer, we highly encourage you reaching out. All of the existing guys who are signed up we're going to have the conversations with you. You guys have been waiting very patiently, and we really appreciate that. We finally have something that is good and stable and simple and reliable. So check it out, and we think this is one of those products that is going to be really, really significant because it just changes how everything works. You don't have to have a print farm anymore. You don't have to think about building a print farm. You just have to write a smidge of code, and quite frankly, we'll try to see if we can make a ChatGPT bot that can do that for you. And then you upload a file and find out what the cost was and send it along. So every one of these model generator sites has a way to make those models real for normal people. So now normal people can search around on a website for whatever they want, make whatever they want, and get it delivered without having to know how to level a bed or what is the right filament. They just get it. So it's really exciting, and we hope to make a bunch of cool announcements here of the partnerships coming down from this. So that's it. We're going to leave it right there, guys. Comment down below any sort of topics or questions that you might have about anything that we're doing. The API and the Etsy app are the big product releases this year. They've been a long time coming. The team's been working really hard on them, and there's great stuff there. So, but we'll just let it go right there. Check them both out, and let us know what you're making. Have a great day, everybody.